In Chapter 1, we are going to take a look at the past tenses, the preterite and the imperfect. Today we're going to review all of the preterite and the regular and irregular forms. So the basic use of the preterite is for talking about things or events that took place in the past but that have a clear beginning and ending to them. In the preterite, you will notice that some of the endings have accents, specifically the yo form and the third person singular. The usted, el, and ella forms will have an accent on the end. Another thing you'll notice is that in the nosotros form, the present ending and the preterite ending are identical, so you will really need to look at the context when translating to decide if this is present or past. So in the example here, we sang a lot in choir class versus we sang a lot yesterday. Both of them say cantamos mucho, but choir class happens every day, so we keep it in the present tense, cantamos, versus yesterday is your keyword ayer. You know that if you see ayer, it already happened, it's done and over with, so you would translate it in the past, we sang. Okay, these are your endings for AR verbs in the preterite. So yo he, tú haste, usted, él, ella, o, nosotros hamos, vosotros hasteis, ustedes, ellos, and ellas haron. For ER and IR verbs, the endings are identical. Yo y, tú iste, usted, él, ella, yo, nosotros imos, vosotros isteis, ustedes, ellos, and ellas yeron. Here's some useful vocabulary that you might remember from last year. Whenever you see these words along in your sentence and you're having to determine preterite or present, then you will know that for sure this is preterite because these are all words that indicate past. So ayer, yesterday, anoche, last night, antier, the day before yesterday, el mes pasado, last month, el año pasado, last year, el fin de semana pasado, last weekend, esta mañana, this morning. For the irregulars, you will see that the preterite has a whole other set of endings and irregular stems. So many irregular verbs in the preterite have an irregular stem and use one set of endings for all of the verbs. So it's the same chart whether it's an AR or an ER or an IR verb. The irregular preterite conjugations don't use accents like they do with the regulars. So this is your chart. Yo he, tú iste, usted, él, ella, o, nosotros imos, vosotros isteis, ustedes, ellos, and ellas yeron. Now these endings get paired up with certain stems. Okay, so these verbs here that are listed are all irregular in the preterite, and the irregular stems are listed to the right of them. So for estar, you will need to say estuve and then pair it up with one of the endings from the previous chart. Tener estuve, poder pud, poner pus, hacer is, decir dij, traer traj, venir vin, querer quis, saber sup, and andar andub. We will practice with these in class. Make sure you get all of your stems. Okay, there are also some things to notice with some of these irregulars. There is a C to Z change in hacer. So where your stem is is, when it comes to the third person, that is becomes HIZ, not C. Because remember, if you're following C with an O, it'll say ICO instead of ISO. Also, with verbs that have a stem ending in a J, like decir and traer, the stem is dich and traj. You're going to drop the I from the ending in the ustedes, ellos, and ellas form. So even though the chart says dieron, you will not say dijeron, you will say dijeron. Okay, and trajeron. There's an additional list of irregulars. If you remember these, we called them the F words last year for ir and ser. Ir means to go, ser means to be, and the conjugation is identical for both. So fui, fuiste, fue, fuimos, and fueron. Fui can mean I was or I went. Fuiste, you were or you went, etc. And then we have dar. Dar is irregular in that it uses er-ir endings instead of ar endings. So the conjugation is di, diste, dio, dimos, and dieron. When it comes to stem changing verbs, these are also considered irregular. In the preterite, they work a little bit differently. Stem changers are the ones that we talked about. You form a shoe around the chart, and those are the forms that, if it falls inside the shoe or the boot, those are the forms that change. Well, in the preterite, the only ones that change are ir ending verbs, and the change could be e to I or o to u. Those are the only two possible changes for preterite stem changing verbs. There's an example right there of servir, and you will notice that it's also not every form that falls in the shoe, but only the third person changes. So yo and tu do not get affected by stem changes in the preterite. And so your chart reads serví, serviste, and then in the third person the e changes to I, sirvió. And then you go to servimos, servistes, those never change regardless of whether it's present or preterite. And then you have ustedes, ellos, and ellas would be sirvieron. And again, just a reminder, there is no change in the preterite for AR or ER stem changing verbs. Okay, this concludes our preterite review. We will look at imperfect next.